Hello. It is September 24th. Today I only played two games. Anthony, who usually runs the thing, he's getting over a cold, so he didn't want to come in still sick-ish. So, hopefully he'll get better soon. But so when I got there, it was Tony and Gary playing already. I hadn't seen Gary for ever. I don't think I've seen him since the first day the thing started. Wayne shows up, and we say hi, what's up, how's it going, blah blah blah, and we eventually get into a warm up game first, and then we play two league games, and then we played a casual game after the two league games. The first casual game was a Scotch where he played in a weird Fildor defense style of way where he played d6 instead of taking on d4. But he lost a piece early to a discovered check or something, or it was a fork actually. But yeah, that game, I won a piece in the first 8 moves, and then I just slowly converted. So that was cool. Not much to note about that game. So afterwards, we decide to play our league game. So our first game, I'm playing white, and the game starts with me playing e4, as I always do. He plays g6 again, so he's going into a modern yet again. If you remember, one of the previous times we played, he played this setup with bishop g7, and I played a 150 attack, and he basically goes into it again. These moves here, queen d2, b6 is interesting. He wants to fianchetto the light squared bishop. It kind of makes sense because he can't really develop it on this diagonal. I can always play stuff like d5 or f3 to basically shut it out. So b6 kind of makes sense. I play the usual bishop a6, bishop h6, where I'm trying to trade off his bishop because I'm anticipating he's going to castle kingside, so I can remove one of the defenders, make his dark squares weak, and then start pushing h4, h5, develop these pieces, and go for an attack. He takes my bishop, which is, I know it's not a good move, because after I take back with the queen, he can't castle. I can always try to sneak in and tickle his position. Obviously, if I play something like, let's just say, if I try to play queen g7, he just has bishop f1, or sorry, bishop f1. I'm looking down here. He has rook f8, and I don't really have an attack here. I can't even take this pawn because of the knight. So, I saw this and I'm like, yeah, nothing's really there. I can just keep my queen here for now, and if he does something, I'll deal with it later. So after I play queen h6, he plays knight c6, which kind of makes sense. You're trying to develop. But the crazy thing about this position is that the computer thinks it's +2. And it's strange to me. I wouldn't think this position is +2. And I can obviously see the downsides of his position. He can't castle. He can't castle, obviously, because my queen's in the way. I have a good center. His pieces, he still needs 2 moves to castle. I can castle immediately and try opening the center in that time. That was the plan that I should have went for. Playing stuff like knight f3, e5 immediately to break this open. I'll probably castle first, but yeah, this position is +2, and I just never, I knew I was better, but I didn't think it was a +2 level of being better. I castled mainly to defend this d4 pawn. I know I'm going to castle here anyway, in more often than not. I can't imagine trying to castle kingside when I haven't developed any of this yet, and I spent the entire opening moving these pieces, right? So Yeah, so I castled, which is the second best move, but the difference between the second and the first best move, again, the first best move being knight f3, the difference is 0.5, which is just, I can't believe it. So anyway, I long castle, bishop e7, bishop b5. You know, I'm trying to develop. I know that I want to pressure this knight because it's kind of loose. I was hoping to play d5 and really just exploit the fact that he's pinned, but he has a6 in time. Here I ended up trading, which computer says is fine. Bishop e2 and bishop c4 are slightly better. See, I definitely would not play bishop c4 because he has b5. Bishop e2. I don't know. I didn't think about bishop e2. But he played a6, and I was like, oh, well, I don't want to move my bishop back, so I'm going to take his knight and then play d5, right? Basically making his bishop kind of useless. So he plays bishop back to b7, and I kind of have what I want here, right? He can't castle kingside. He's trying to castle queenside, obviously, and like he might be able to, but his bishop sucks because I have played e4 d5. His knight can be a target later, and I can always try to push e5 to open the center. So at this point, I thought my position was good, but it's plus 0.5 and not plus 2. So yeah, this position is not as good as the last one because he got rid of a knight that isn't actually as useful as it could be because of this pawn wedge. And, you know, I traded off I traded off my bishop, which could have been useful to attack his position, I guess, since he's underdeveloped. But okay. So game continues, knight f3. Now I decide to develop my knight, which I should have done like 7 moves ago. So he plays queen d7, and I see an idea here where I can play, which is what I played in the game, knight g5. Idea being if he castles, I have a fork, and I'll win in exchange. Computer believes that rook he1 is the way to go, followed by him long castling, and then me pushing e5 now. I didn't see this in the game. I had the idea of playing e5 at some point, but I didn't think it worked because, you know, he takes and then, like, I didn't see anything that really made sense or that was like convincing here. I thought it was like, okay, this is a good position, but, you know, material's equal. He's got a bishop that, yeah, I am blunting, but he's gonna work to, you know, get rid of the blockade air quotes, with the pawn on d5. I didn't think this position was that good, and computer says it's plus 0.4, which is okay, but yeah, I guess I went wrong already before, so now it's just not any better. Knight g5 is just zeros because of well, knight g4 wasn't the move, but that's what he played. So obviously he's threatening this fork on my 2 rooks because I've long castled, which I saw. So I played queen h4 in response, protecting the f2 square. He plays h6, trying to kick my knight, but I realized that I don't actually have to take, or I don't actually have to move my knight, because if he does take, I will take his rook. Now if he castles, then yeah, I'll have to move the knight, but he hasn't castled yet, so I'm fine. I play h3 to kick his knight. Now he can still, well, no, he can't take because I have my queen there. He doesn't have the same idea as I do because, you know, the rooks are defending each other. He does take the pawn, and here I'm thinking, okay, you're getting one of my rooks. I'm going to force you to take my h rook that's stuck in a corner to make your rook get stuck in a corner. So I played rook df1, and he plays f6 trying to kick my knight. Apparently I was supposed to take here, but I saw he could take Well, okay, maybe not that way. I saw he could take here, and then I would play queen g3, and I wasn't convinced. Like, I didn't think this position was good because he's gonna castle. Like, his pawn structure is, yeah, okay, it's kind of weird, but I didn't see any, like, good advantage. I guess I should have argued that I can play rook hf1 and I dominate this file. But I just didn't think this was as good as I thought it should be. So I didn't go into that. I ended up taking his knight with my queen just to get out of this pin, but of course he's going to take back. And now he's up a pawn, right, which was the f-pawn that he took to fork the pieces, and now I'm worse. And I knew I was worse once I got to this position. I immediately felt that my position kind of wasn't that good. You know, I don't have an attack. He's going to get castled. He's up a pawn. And, you know, he's probably going to try to break with either c6, e6. So I kind of knew this position was going south already. I played rook e1, trying to open this up, but it's too late. a5, I'm not really sure what he was trying to get with a5, but okay. I play knight e2 to try to reroute my knight here, which I do. Knight d4, rook c8. At this point in the game, we're both about a minute and a half apiece, so I stopped writing the moves down. Eventually, the game got into a time scramble, and I ended up losing because, again, I had like 15 seconds. I was trying to make a random move, and then it was a bad move. But yeah, so that's about as far as I had written down and can remember. So obviously the opening was good and was a success. He misplayed this capture, which just led to a lot of problems in his position, but I couldn't capitalize correctly. So the biggest advantage I had was here, and I should have played d5. It makes sense, but I just saw that I could pin the knight. What I saw in the game was I could pin the knight to the king and then play d5, because I'm going to win the piece. But I failed to realize that after I played bishop b5, black gets a move by the rules of chess. So he's going to play a6. So I didn't see this for some reason. I just saw boom bam, and I'm better. But obviously not like this. So I was supposed to start with d5. Computer says knight a5 or knight b8 are about the same, with knight b4 being slightly worse, which is okay. I mean, that's fine. All right, this is the reason. And knight b8, I mean, this is just yucky, right? Your queen and knight are both trying to get to d2, or d7, but they can't both be there at the same time. So now this position is good, and I'm supposed to play e5 immediately, because if de, what's the argument? Bishop b5. What's wrong with knight f d7? Knight f3. Oh, and whatever he plays, I'm trying to threaten knight e4, and he can't move. And if he plays if he plays c6, dc6. Okay, yeah. I mean, for what it's worth, I did have this idea in my head, like very vaguely, of playing e5 early, but I just didn't think to do it now. For some reason, I was like, ooh, me pin knight to king. But obviously that wasn't the best move, so I ended up losing this game, even though I was +2 at some point. So I was +2 in this position, but didn't see it. Didn't see d5 immediately. I only saw this. So after the first game, we play another one. This time I have the black pieces, and Wayne's a d4 player as far as I know. So I play my usual old Dutch. He goes into the main line with c4, knight f6, knight c3, e6, knight c3, bishop e7, bishop f4, castle. Pretty standard Dutch setups. I played bishop e7 again. I didn't really think about playing bishop b4. I think I do get more, not better, but I think I need to start going back to trying to play bishop b4 if they allow me to, because just doing this is probably fine. And it kind of just, to me, it just makes it feels more natural, because I can play queen e8, d6, and knight bd7, and because the bishop's not here, I can actually guard the e6 pawn, which I know is usually pretty weak in a lot of classical Dutch setups. So, or in the Dutch in general, e6 is usually a relatively weak pawn square thing. But anyway, so we have castle, and then he played queen b3, which threw me for a loop. I wasn't really sure how to answer this move. I just played I played b6 to play bishop g7. Generally in the Dutch, if black is not going to fianchetto his light squared bishop, then you may as well do it yourself. So that's what I did. So he played bishop e2. I played d6 just to complete the typical Dutch structure. But then he long castled. And here one, I was surprised, and two, this is one of my weak points, I know, is like I don't know how to handle queenside castling against when I play the Dutch. But I tried to just make moves that made sense, one of which being knight e4. Again, a very common idea in the Dutch where you're trying to either outpost a knight here or make a trade so that, for example, you get a pawn on e4, and let's say the knight moves. Okay, so maybe like this. You can play d5, and because you've played e6, you can actually try to get something like this. The structure where you can try the kingside attack. But the thing is, if you do this, it's like he's castled queenside though, so it's it's not exactly the same, and I'm not really sure how to go about it. But anyway, so I played knight e4, he took. I take back with the bishop, of course. He plays d5, which is a thematic pawn break for white. E5 in response is also very important, making sure, you need to make sure you're able to play this move in response to d5. Bishop g3, of course, to get the bishop out of danger. I played knight d7, trying to route my knight to c5. I get tempo on his queen, and maybe it's a little awkward for him, and also could be useful to support an attack over here. H3, trying to save the bishop from me pushing f4. I wasn't really gonna push f4 because I saw this pawn trade. I didn't think it was that good. This pawn is kind of up here by itself. Yeah, the rook supports it, but it felt like it was kind of overextended. But I did play knight c5. Nice little square for the knight. Hits the queen. Queen c3, bishop f6. Another nicely placed piece in the Dutch. If the center can open, then having bishop f6 is really nice because it sees a lot of the... it sees the queen side, which in this situation he's castled, which is even better. But just in general, if you can't play f4, for example, playing e4 gives your bishop a really nice control on the center. He starts with b4, trying to kick my knight out. I decided to take this way first because the capture chain favors me. Because if he tries to trade this way, I'd take his bishop for free, and he can't really capture anything of mine that's worth value. So b4, I take on f3. He plays gf3. For some reason, I didn't see gf3. I only saw bishop f3, to which I would have played e4. And then I was thinking of playing knight d3. But he took with the pawn, which it surprised me, but I still had the same idea of playing e4. He moves his queen. And here I should have figured out what was going on here. I didn't want to take here because I was gonna lose this pawn, but obviously he can't do that right now, so he would have done something like this. But still, I didn't like my pawn just hanging out over there, so after he played queen c2, I moved my knight out of the way of this attack. He takes my pawn, I take a pawn of his, again getting tempo on his queen. He plays queen a4 to try to push my knight away, but I play a5 to protect it. And I am better now. I'm like getting close to -1. But obviously in the game, like when you look at this position, like how is this -1? Like where is my pawn advantage? And I couldn't answer that question. I guess it's the bishop and the knight. And his bishop kind of sucks. And this bishop kind of sucks a little bit. But I didn't really get that feeling when I was playing the game. So he plays ef5. I proceed with queen e8. A bit of a sneaky move. I didn't mind a queen trade here because I didn't really see a way to attack his king, especially with the structure with like this and this. Yeah, I just didn't see a way forward, so I was like, okay, let's go into an endgame. Let's trade queens. Maybe he'll hang his queen and won't see the attack, but he does. He plays queen b3. I retreat my knight to a6, trying to bring it back to c5. He plays f3, which I didn't really know what he was trying to do. I thought I could take this pawn for a second, and I was looking at it, and then I realized, like, oh, wait, the queen defends it. Ooh, let me not do that. But yeah, computer says now this position is -1.7. I play knight c5, which the computer likes. He plays queen a3. I'm not exactly sure what he was doing here, but I couldn't find a move in this position. Computer wants bishop g5. Wow, bishop g5. What happens to f4? Should we just go back? And I guess, oh, you can't really play e4 because I'm going to take. And if you try to support it, I mean, I have two defenders on it already, I guess. That's strange. Like, okay. I play queen a5. I didn't know what else to do. He plays e4. And I give him this little check. I thought I had a fork here, but it turns out he can move this pawn up. Kind of block my whole attack, so I'm forced to play queen h6. He follows with bishop f3. I play rook e8, rook f e8, and he plays rook d e1. And again, here I'm running low on time, so I stop writing down moves. And it's funny because we get into an endgame where the g file opens because I think I played g6 at some point, and then he blunders trying to create a battery with the rook here and the queen here. But my queen was here, and I played rook g8, and he basically had to lose a rook. So, yeah. I ended up losing the game on time, not so much being in a worse position because of like being in time trouble, I guess. So yeah, if we both had another 5 minutes, I would have won this game, but I didn't. I didn't have enough time. I just couldn't figure out the middle game here. Like, again, another position where I have a 2-point advantage, but it's not clear how. At least to me. Obviously, a stronger player will figure out why it's good for black here, but I just couldn't, like, I didn't see a way forward. I couldn't figure out the way to go about this game, and yeah, I just lost on time. So these two games I ended up losing. One to time trouble, where I just made a bad move, and then the other to basically running out of time. I had like 5 seconds left technically, and he had like 17, but that wasn't gonna matter. Like, I was gonna lose on time regardless. So I had a 2-point advantage in both of these games at one point, and I just could not figure out how or why. And then I ended up losing because I didn't have enough time, because I couldn't figure out why these positions were so good for me. So yeah, 2 losses for the day. Those are the only league games I played. I did play another casual game against Wayne after this, where I tried playing a Catalan, But he put a Slav setup, and I just like did not. I was even more lost on that one because I'm still trying to learn it. Yeah, overall, chess is hard, and I suck.